The movie opens in 1979 when a team of lumberjacks in Alaska began their work for the day, cutting down trees and loading them onto trucks to transport. Once they're done, one of the drivers starts up, ready to transport a stack of logs. As he drove, his vehicle was suddenly lifted into the air by some unseen force. Whatever had grabbed the truck held it suspended for a brief moment before dropping it back to the ground. Seconds after the truck was flung through the air and crashed back to the ground, the driver's friend, Carl, who had seen what happened from a short distance, tried to rush over to assist. When Carl reaches the overturned truck, he freezes in his tracks, seeing that there is an alien spaceship hovering above him. Suddenly, a bright blue glow emanated from the bottom of the hovering saucer, causing Carl to stand paralyzed before the light enveloped him. Carl felt himself being lifted off the ground as the beam pulled him up toward the ship. Several years later, in recent-day California, a young man named Isaac is riding his bicycle down the sidewalks, weaving between pedestrians on his way to his job, where he works as a computer engineer at a large technology company. When he arrived at the building, he headed straight for the room where his colleagues Beck and Samantha were stationed. After spending all day working, Isaac grabbed his bicycle and rode it down to his therapist's office. During their discussion, his therapist mentioned an extracurricular activity that Isaac enjoyed and suggested Isaac start making video diaries. Taking the older woman's advice, Isaac began creating home videos. One afternoon, while filming his hike up a local mountain, Isaac witnessed a sudden, shocking scene of giant fireballs crashing into the nearby hills. Already close to where the objects had fallen, Isaac takes out his camera again and begins filming until a sudden view of an alien stops him in his tracks. Still filming quietly, Isaac stood in shock until the alien departed. Startled by what he'd witnessed, Isaac began to run. 3 days had passed before Isaac's consciousness returned, and he found himself lying down on a hill near a lake with no recollection of how he got there. Disoriented, his eyes scanned the shoreline until landing on his video camera next to him. With a sense of urgency and shaky fingers, Isaac reviewed the last stored footage. At first, he only sees snippets of his mountain trek, but when he fast forwards, he makes a chilling discovery when the image of the alien comes into view. As he continued to watch, he saw footage of his body being lifted into the ship. After returning home, Isaac begins to experience hallucinations, noticing a small scar on his arm. Seeking answers, he scheduled an appointment and discovered a scar in his bones from an injury he had never experienced. It was as if his bone and tissue were cut with impossible precision, leaving not a trace behind save an unexplained fracture. The chilling revelations of his doctor's appointment weighed heavily on Isaac as he headed over to work. Feeling like he needed to share what he had seen, Isaac played the footage captured on his camera to Beck, hoping for a rational explanation. Beck watched in shock as strange events unfolded on the small screen. Though wanting to comfort Isaac, he struggled to make sense of what they'd witnessed. Receiving no help from his colleagues, Isaac went home and uploaded the video to the internet. The next morning, Isaac receives a call from a news station manager who had discovered the footage and demanded to speak with its creator. Shocked, Isaac logged online and was stunned to find his video already had hundreds of thousands of views. Before he knew it, Isaac was pulled into the blinding spotlight of the 24-hour news cycle. On air, Isaac recounted that fateful day's strange events with calm sincerity, but the host, Christina, subjected his story to intense scrutiny. She questioned the convenient nature of Isaac documenting the ordeal and insinuated his technical skills could have manipulated the footage. Although Isaac was adamant that the footage was real, online speculation and skepticism towards Isaac's credibility began to increase. Ignoring the rumors, he immersed himself in research, attempting to connect with others who had the same experience. Finally, Isaac was able to schedule a meeting with a woman named Sarah. On the day of their meeting, while Isaac awaited her arrival, he began to experience strange hallucinations, but quickly pulled himself back to reality when he saw Sarah arrive. Eager to compare experiences, yet sensing her unease, Isaac shows her historical accounts of alleged otherworldly encounters and provides context that such phenomena had reportedly occurred for centuries. Intrigued by Isaac's research, Sarah recounted a case from 1979 in the woods of Alaska, where 3 lumberjacks had witnessed an alien spacecrafted sighting and told him that their testimony stood up to lie detector tests. She explains that after the abducted man came forward with his story, he vanished without a trace. As their discussion drew to a close, Isaac and Sarah exchanged contact information so they could share any future findings. In the days that followed, Sarah calls Isaac with details about the abductee, Carl. Once he hung up the phone, Isaac continued researching other abduction claims. While mailing envelopes, he encountered a blogger who wanted to share Isaac's story, promising that he would write it from Isaac's point of view. Returning home, Isaac becomes annoyed by the increasing number of people calling him a liar and decides to visit the blogger, Keith, who warmly welcomed him into this office. Keith proposed a lie detector to confirm Isaac's claims. Once Isaac agrees, Keith readied the machine and begins by asking simple questions and slowly questioning him about the incident, validating Isaac's honesty. Telling Isaac to wait, Keith left the room and then returned with 2 men in black. The 2 men Isaac to sleep and kidnapped the young man while he attempted to resist. When he finally regains consciousness, Isaac finds himself in a facility where he is placed in a white room. In the mirror showing the hallway, he sees Sarah going to another room as she fearfully asks where she is going. On a screen in front of him, Keith appears, revealing himself as Agent Graves, and tells Isaac that he was detained because he possesses important information. Isaac is then subjected to Graves' tests, where he displays no strange abilities as the ones Grave had expected. The agent's frustration boiled over and began to demand information about Carl, but Isaac had no idea what the man was talking about. While communicating with his colleagues, Graves accidentally revealed that Carl was located in British Columbia, but that they didn't have a specific location for him. Seizing an opportunity, Isaac frees himself from his restraints and rushes to Sarah's cell in hopes of helping them both escape. Running through the hallways of the facility and avoiding being shot by the androids that were following them, Isaac channels some unknown inner reserve of his powers and unlocks a sealed door, liberating them both from their strange facility. Emerging into a dense forest, Isaac and Sarah begin to run, frightened of being captured again. After an exhausting trek, they finally reach a small town, where he asks a local bartender where he would be able to find access to the internet, and the woman guides him to a man named Zed, who might be able to help him with his problem. Taking the direction, Isaac and Sarah travel another few miles and find a man using his laptop, sitting at an outdoor bar. The 2 fugitives approached him cautiously and confirmed this was indeed Zed. Before they can ask Zed any, they see the androids following them have finally caught up to them and are startled, following Zed to a discreet location. Zed guided them through the forest, revealing that he was aware of who their captors were. Once he escorted them to his well-furnished treehouse, he began to set up his equipment, while Sarah and Isaac talked privately on the balcony. Finally feeling like she can trust Isaac, Sarah finally shares her abduction story that occurred when she was very young. Once he is ready, Isaac leverages Isaac's intel and can connect him to Carl, who was safely hidden from the organization. Isaac begs the reluctant man to speak to him, explaining his situation and telling him about the people who were after him. Isaac sends Carl the signal that lured him to the mountain several days ago, which Carl decrypts as an alien message giving details about their arrival a few days later. Eager to learn more, Isaac, Sarah, and Zed hitchhiked from Costa Rica to Canada, hoping to speak to Carl and discover the truth. After a long journey on a small private plane, the group arrives in Canada, unaware that Graves is tracking them. Once they board a train and settle in, relaxed thinking that they have finally escaped the reaches of the organization that is tracking them, Zed discovers 2 androids have been following them all along. Despite the attack, the group manages to avoid the androids by working together and pushing them off the train. Once they're sure they're safe, Isaac, Sarah, and Zed exit the train and hitchhike to Carl's secluded woodland cabin. Upon arrival, Carl emerged from his house holding a shotgun, threatening to shoot until Isaac explained their identity. Once he recognizes the group, he uses a specialized device to deactivate the tracking devices in their hands that they weren't aware of. Once he is sure the trackers are deactivated, Carl welcomes them inside and tells them that he spent 2 decades aiming to find the aliens, translating their signals into a comprehensible language. He then continues to play the decrypted communications he has achieved so far. While they sit together, Carl begins to recount his abduction vividly, telling them all the details he remembered. A few hours later, Zed takes a look at the devices Carl had made from scratch, surprised at how much Carl was able to teach himself. Outside the cabin, Isaac and Sarah admired the scenic surroundings. She then voices a matter that has been bothering her the whole time and asks him how he was able to open the locked door in the facility, suspecting that their abduction might have altered them in some way, to which Isaac agrees. After they return to the cabin, Carl takes Isaac aside and discusses his plan to meet the aliens, giving him details on how it needs to happen. 2 days later, the group is on high alert expecting the aliens and are sitting outside waiting for their arrival. Suddenly, the ground begins to shake, which the group assumed was the indication of the aliens' proximity. Despite Sarah telling him not to go, Isaac rushed, wandering around until he finally encountered one of the aliens. He then guides the greenish-looking creature back to the cabin so it can meet the others. Once they're all gathered together, Isaac asks the alien why they have been abducting humans. The alien explains that their species were attempting to understand creation, and that they had discovered the religious figure, Jesus, held the secret of the beginning of all things, and humanity shared a little part of it. Intrigued, Sarah asked why her hands ached ever since the abduction. Effortlessly, the alien separates her arms with a special, highly advanced technological device to remove a tracking implant, leaving her shocked that she didn't feel any pain. Suddenly, Carl's devices begin to detect movement in their surrounding, and he realizes that the organization must have finally found them. From outside, the group begins to hear Graves attempting to contact them by using a microphone. Hoping to give Isaac more time, Carl goes outside to speak to Graves, who immediately asks about his father, accusing Carl of doing something to him, as he was the only one out of his old group that did not pass the lie detector test. Despite the accusations, Carl denied having any knowledge of Graves' father. Doubting Carl was telling the truth, Graves ordered his men to shoot Carl and then Sarah when she rushed over to help him. Shocked and angry over Sarah's injury, Isaac unleashes his inner powers, which causes time to slow down and gives him the ability to help his friends. As the surroundings change, the aliens return to the cabin to heal Carl and Sarah from their fatal injuries. They then help them walk through their enemies, shielding them from sight and making them completely invisible. As they stood there shocked that the fugitives had simply vanished, Graves and his agents noticed an alien craft hovering in the sky before it completely disappeared from the sky. 6 months later, Isaac has begun exploring his ability and is learning how to control it better. He and Sarah relocated to Costa Rica after falling in love and deciding to move in together. Meanwhile, Carl and Zed established a new agency to continue their research on the aliens, hoping to make other discoveries. Due to faulty and unauthorized misconduct, Graves faced dismissal from the agency, never to be a threat to the group again. And with that, the movie ends. We hope you enjoyed our video. Watch the next recaps on the screen, and don't forget to subscribe for more amazing recaps. See you in the next one.